Hi everybody, my name's Karen Warren and this is an introduction to personality types. We've got a slightly different format to the presentation today because there's a lot of information to look at and work through, and I think that looks better as a number of slides as opposed to me talking through the information. I'm a very visual learner and I find that more useful, and I hope you do too. Carl Jung identified a number of personality types which influence our behaviour and how we interact with other people. Your personality type can influence how you deal with stress, and so then how you build your resilience. Carl Jung identified the attitudes of extraversion and introversion and the decision-making functions of thinking and feeling, and that's what we're going to talk about today. There is a handout to the presentation which is on the useful information section of the website. I also have a caveat to the presentation in that I talk about quite extreme versions of introversion and extraversion in order to make a point really. So if at some point you think, well, I do that, but not to that extent, that's probably because I'm using a slightly bigger example just to demonstrate a point. So Carl Jung identified the attitudes of extraversion and introversion, and if your preference is more towards extraversion, you are likely to find some of the following points resonate with you. More extroverted people find their energy from others and their interactions with other people. They like surprises and they like change. They work well in environments that are changing continuously. And as it says at the bottom, they wear their heart on their sleeve. So you tend to know where more extroverted people are in terms of their mood. If they're happy, sad, angry, upset, disappointed, you tend to know where a more extroverted person is. And they will show that. They will show you their mood and on their face and also in their behaviour. So a more extroverted person is less likely to enjoy being on their own. It doesn't mean they can't do that, it just takes more energy, and they will probably do that for a shorter period than a more introverted person and seek company more quickly. If an extroverted person has a problem, they're more likely to canvass the opinions of others in terms of finding a solution. They will ask lots of questions of, what would you do? What do you think about this? And that will help them make a decision. If your preference is more towards introversion, then the following points might resonate with you. These people find their energy inside of themselves and so are more likely to be quiet, introspective, like a quite planned and organised sort of approach to their lives. And as it says, they keep their feelings under control, so you're less likely to know with an introverted person what their mood is. They might be happy, sad, upset, angry, disappointed, but you're actually less likely to see that in their facial expression and also then in their behaviour. So it's much more difficult to know where an introverted person is at. And so lots of people will ask us, are you okay? Because we don't demonstrate that outwardly. More so to the people that we know and our friends and the people we're close to, but generally you can't tell where an introverted person is at in terms of mood. So a more introverted person is less likely to enjoy socialising in large groups. It doesn't mean they can't do that, but it will take more energy for them to do so. They might feel quite tired afterwards. They like their personal space, and also they don't like to lose their temper. And I think that's about feeling out of control, and sometimes that can make us quite conflict averse. We will walk away from situations that we find ourselves losing our temper because we don't like to feel out of control. And actually sometimes we would do better to stay and fight our corner a bit more. So an introvert finds their energy inside of themselves, and typically then if they have a problem, they will think about it, they will rumble around their thoughts and make a decision, and only then will they talk to other people about it. So these lists just give us a comparison between the two preferences. A more introverted person looks inside of themselves for their energy and for solutions to any problems. They think and then they may act, but they'll have a good old think about it first. And they value a depth of experience. So more introverted people will find themselves in roles such as computer programmers, engineers, librarians, quite quiet, thoughtful industries. Again, that's quite a big generalisation. They also will like a quiet working environment, which is not always possible in the days of open plan offices. An introverted person thinks to speak, so when they speak, usually that's been very much considered before they open their mouth. Whereas if we go to the other side, a more extroverted person speaks to think, and they think out loud. So if a more introverted person is in a meeting with a number of more extroverted people, they can start to feel crowded out. Going up the more extroverted person list, an extroverted person tends to value a breadth of experience, so they like a greater range of knowledge, but possibly less in each individual one. And they act first and think later. They love to dive in, and then may possibly think, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Talkative, outgoing, it's just different. Very, very different, but very different aspects of how we like to live our lives. I took this picture from the internet, and I don't think you can probably see the text very well, but it just demonstrates the difference between us beautifully, I think. A more extroverted person will say, I'm staying in tonight. And a more introverted person will say, I'm staying in tonight. If you cancel plans on a more extroverted person, they are likely to be disappointed and possibly upset. If you cancel plans on a more introverted person, as much as they were looking forward to seeing you, they will be quite happy because they can put their PJs on and stay in. You're much less likely to upset a more introverted person if you cancel plans with them. I think it's important that we recognise that none of us are just an introvert or just an extrovert. I think it's something that we do to try and stereotype people. But if you look at those lists, you can see that some of them will apply, and you might be generally on the more introverted side, but then there will be aspects of extroversion that also resonate with you as well, and vice versa. And in different situations, we can be different things. So I think it is important that we recognise that even the most introverted person can be very extrovert, possibly when they're out with family and friends that they feel very comfortable with. And then the most extroverted person will also need time to recharge their batteries and sit quietly. So Carl Jung recognised the decision-making functions of thinking and feeling. So if you make decisions in terms of thinking, that means that you like very fact-based decisions. My background is in banking, and so often I will say, what does it cost? We like evidence, data and knowledge and why a decision should be made. Focus less on the overall outcome of what the impact of a decision might be. So these people are very analytical and can see, as it says, the cause and effect relations, but also they can be perceived as being quite unemotional and aloof. People with a preference for feeling make the decisions based on the emotional impact of how people will be affected. So their focus will be more on people feeling comfortable and happy and secure than actually why a piece of work needs to move forward. These people are warm and inclusive, but sometimes can be perceived as being too accommodating. And again, just like with the introversion and extraversion, in terms of thinking and feeling, we can be different things at different times. You might very much focus your decision making on thinking. But actually, if you have a child or young person that you know and then you found out they were being bullied at school, we would all move to feeling very, very quickly and focus on that young person. So again, you're not just in one function or the other. You can move between the two. So there is a huge amount of information on this slide, but also this slide is on the handout if you want to have a look at that as well. So I'll just run through them. So top right hand side, the extroverted thinker. These people are very action focused, task focused, very driven and determined. And they want to know what is going to happen and when and who will do it. Typically, they will look for somebody else to be doing that work. They are good at delegating work. But they can be perceived, because they are so task focused, they can be perceived as being too aggressive and controlling. Their focus is more on task than people, and sometimes, particularly if you're in other personality types, that feels uncomfortable. The extroverted feeling person is a great communicator who likes to generate new ideas and have conversations about how those things could move forward. But generally, they like less to write reports and maybe policy and paperwork that needs to actually then support that new idea. These people love to be social and love to communicate with others. They're very friendly. But on a bad day they can be perceived as being possibly indiscreet and a bit giddy. On the bottom left hand side, the introverted feeling person. They're motivated by the feelings of others and will sometimes put other people's feelings before their own. So they're focused more on the well-being of people than they are on task. These are the great supervisors of the past. We don't have this role quite so much anymore in the workplace. These were the people that would know the details of the people in their team. They would know that Margaret's mum has just gone into hospital and isn't very well, or that somebody's had to take their cat to the vet. Those more intimate details of teams, those are those people that would know that level of detail. So they can be hugely supportive and reliable and there very much for other people. But when they don't like what's happening, they can dig their heels in. And they tend not to say that they're not happy, but they dig their heels in and work doesn't move forward. Top left, your introverted thinker. They like time to plan their work, to organise their work, to analyse what they're doing. Very analytical thinkers. But sometimes it can feel like it takes too much time to actually move work forward. So an introverted thinker is very exact and deliberate, but on a bad day they can appear very reserved and unemotional, quite aloof. So hopefully one of those personality type resonates with you maybe more than the others. And as I've said before, you can move around the different personality types, but usually people will feel one that is more comfortable. You might have one that feels more comfortable as a work persona than a non-work persona. But hopefully with the detail that we've looked at, there is sort of one that resonates more than the others. There are many, many more. But I'm just focusing on these main four today. So your personality is a mix of all the four preferences. And if we only had extroverted thinkers, extroverted feeling people, introverted feeling people, or introverted thinkers, it wouldn't work. The more introverted people wouldn't communicate, generally, and the more extroverted people would charge ahead and not quite understand why they were doing it or what the impact on people was. So we do need a mix of all the four preferences. It's very tempting sometimes to say, oh, I wish everybody was like me. It doesn't work that way. And your energy preferences change at different times. So you may well behave differently at work than you do outside of work. And you also do have then a conscious and less conscious persona. So your less conscious persona is when maybe you're with friends and you're very relaxed and comfortable and you're using language that you're very comfortable with. And then more consciously somebody comes into the room that is important to you. And you mentally maybe sit up and think, I need to be slightly more mindful about the type of language that I'm using. And you're very focused then on how you're being perceived by that other person. So for me, the difference between conscious and less conscious is you're less conscious, you're very comfortable, and consciously you sit up and think much more mindfully about how you're being perceived. It's not wrong, it's just different. I think the modern world, and I talk about this a little bit in the next video, the modern world has said that extroversion is more normal. I don't know what normal means, but actually we're just different. And no one has the trump card to say I'm right and you're wrong, or vice versa. I think it's really, really great to understand the aspects of personality types more. For me, it helped me understand that I am a more introverted person, as much as I can be quite extrovert as well. That then helped me manage my stress and build my resilience, because I understood myself and I could then articulate that to other people. So I hope you enjoyed the presentation today. I hope you found the information useful and are starting to think maybe about what your personality type is. There's lots of ways you can keep in touch with me via the website. If you've got any feedback on the presentations, that would be great, really great and very welcome. And also you can tweet me. So until next time, thank you very much. Bye bye.